Joraptor, the one, the only, the man, the myth, the legend. He posted a collection of information that's been gathered on AC Shadows. He did a full video. Of course, recommend you check it out. But he highlighted some of the key takeaways. So within AC Shadows, they're trying to find a way to clearly frame the difference in playstyles between Yasuke and Naoe. They're trying to, of course, get the discussion more towards the game itself and away from sort of the outside elements and pressures. They don't want to frame this around like the hip hop inspired music that comes on when Yasuke comes on screen and fights. They don't want that to be the topic of discussion. They want to just focus on the game. You kind of turn your brain off to the other stuff. And so they're trying to drop in some more gameplay information that people can look at and take away something from. So what he says is Yasuke makes sound when sneaking and assassinating enemies, alerting many in the camp with the latter. But we learned that his bow kills are silent. This is something I will give them credit for. Apparently Yasuke is straight up not capable of a lot of things that Naoe is capable of. So like he can't really do the leap of faith in the same way. He doesn't parkour the same way. If you want intense parkour, that's where Naoe comes in. And frankly, I think that is a good way of handling it. One of my frustrations with Syndicate, where they had, of course, two protagonists that you swap between, was that they kind of played the same for the most part. There were different like abilities and stuff, but for the most part, they played basically the same. But in this case, it seems as though they are actually changing that element, and Yasuke will be capable of some stuff that Naoe can't do, and vice versa. And I think that's a good way of doing it. So he's not going to be somebody you play with if you're trying to do any stealth at all. Dialogue is different depending on the character you chose during the mission, although so far they seem to say the same things but in different words. That is true, at least in the clips we've seen. Again, the tough thing with this is that we really have not seen much of the game at all, so it's hard to gauge exactly where we're at. I do think the game is graphically looking better in the newer trailers than it did when they first revealed it, which is a tendency for Ubisoft Assassin's Creed stuff. The work in progress footage, like 6 months to a year out from launch, is always like, oh, are you sure this is ready? And then by the time it launches, it's like, oh, actually, wow, you guys cleaned that up nicely. It's just for whatever reason, that's how Ubisoft's Anvil engine works, where they make a ton of progress in the last like 3 to 5 months. It's very consistent. It happened with Valhalla, happened with Odyssey. It's just, it happens all over the place. I do think Joraptor's right to point out that the writing is the big question mark. He mentioned on our podcast last week that the writing staff, the head writer and everybody that was responsible for like the crazy success of Odyssey's approach, which was every side quest has a story, every side quest and NPC character should have some personality, some trait, some objective. And that led to some really interesting and memorable side quests in that game. I know some people don't like Odyssey. I think it's generally underrated. But at least not as an Assassin's Creed, not as an Assassin's Creed game. I think as an AC game, it's not very good, but as an open world, like fantasy adventure game, it's pretty good. But having said that, the people that were responsible for that stuff that I really liked about Odyssey have almost all left. I think he said that the main person left to work on the new BioShock game. So this is like the part I'm particularly concerned about, because all the dialogue we've seen so far is like super stiff, not particularly interesting, and it's just very dry. Maybe that changes when we've seen more, because again, we haven't seen much. And I almost prefer the dry, uninteresting dialogue over like some weird, awkward attempts at being funny, or just doing like Guardians of the Galaxy, Marvel inspired, whatever, like comedy of errors thing that a lot of games do nowadays when they're trying to be relatable or hip. So I guess I'll take what I can get. A big feature from previous AC games returns, as you can call on Shinobi recruits to help you out during an encounter. That's interesting. Okay, that's interesting. We haven't seen that in action as far as I'm aware. The Call on Shinobi feature seems to be a combination of Call to Arms from AC Odyssey and Jomsvikings feature from AC Valhalla based on my analysis. That is interesting. We'll see, you know, if they actually show us that soon, because that's different. Both Naoe and Yasuke can do posture attacks to remove armor, but only Yasuke can charge up his attacks at any point during a combo, while Naoe can only charge up her first attack. Okay. Interesting. So just differences in terms of melee move sets and things. Yasuke is the only one able to carry heavy items around in the world. Okay, so I imagine this is one of those things where if there's like, oh, there's a cave and there's probably goodies inside the cave, but you have to pick up this barrel and move it off and then walk into the cave and grab the cool item. But only Yasuke can lift it up. And then there'll be other like caves and hideouts, which you have to use the grappling hook to swing and get to, like we saw in that trailer last week. And that's something that only Naoe can do. So I imagine there's going to be a lot of stuff out in the world where you have to swap around. Ubisoft finally confirms that Naoe can use her bells to attract guards, probably similar to noisemakers from Mirage. Okay. Enemies can react to Yasuke and Naoe's posture attacks, charge light, heavy attacks, and break them out of it. Okay. Guards can get sleepy by standing in the sun all day, making it easier to sneak past them. Oh, that's cool. I will say, I've seen people bring up in the comments, people are like, if the stealth is like Outlaws, lol. This is a totally different engine. The AI in the Snowdrop engine, pretty like laughably bad. The AI systems they had, at least in Odyssey and Origins, were actually pretty impressive. With the Anvil engine, which they're using for this, they downgraded a lot of it in Valhalla, but it's not clear. Like, again, Valhalla was a separate team than this team. This team is the one that did Odyssey. That was their last big game. And so hopefully it plays more like Odyssey. In my opinion, I'd rather that. I hope they didn't dumb it down like in this game. Did I? Oh, I hit play. I hit play, and so Spotify started playing. That's funny. Okay, well. I was like, what the hell is happening? I was like, that doesn't sound like the soundtrack for AC Shadows. Shout out to is it AJR? Is that what that was? Yeah, AJR Rivers Cuomo. There you go. There you go. AJR, shout out. So what else we got? Guards can get sleepy. So yeah, I personally like that stuff. They also had stuff in Origins and Odyssey where, like, if you killed a guard on a castle wall and you went and left, and you could just posture up on a hill or a tree or something and wait, you would see other guards come, find the body, and of course they get like aggro and they're looking for you and they're trying to find somebody responsible for killing this guy. And if they don't find you after a certain period of time, they'll pick up the body and they carry it outside of the encampment, and they'll like pile up the bodies outside the camp, ready to be taken away to be buried. And the guards will go off, they take bathroom breaks. They go and pee on the side of the building or wherever they're stationed. They'll go to bed. They have their own little routines where they'll go and eat, and they rotate between eating. Like, there's actually some pretty impressive AI systems that they used to do. They didn't really do it with Valhalla at all, but I'm hopeful, because this is a different team, their version of the Anvil engine they're using retained that. So I really hope that that's the case. Footsteps will stand out less in the rain. Okay. In terms of sound, I'm assuming he means, because footprints, yeah, but it's footsteps, so I'm guessing sound. So when it's rainy outside and it's loud, you don't need to worry about sound as much. Rain and snow are fully simulated in AC Shadows, meaning that these weather effects can now happen throughout the entire map when it makes sense within the current season, where Odyssey and Valhalla, for example, always had snow in certain regions. Yeah. Environments break more realistically thanks to the updated Anvil engine, with pieces falling down individually, for example. That's like what we've seen with the first trailer with the spinning weapon. Weather effects are massively improved, with wind effects looking way more realistic when blowing through trees and grass. They've talked about this in a couple of things. Like in this article, they described how they can simulate here. So they talked about this at Gamescom. It's the most advanced visual Assassin's Creed game to date. Let's see. It's been pushed further to support and introduce innovation such as the new weather system, changing seasons, enhanced lighting and shadows, dynamic wind and spray, which can now show up to 10,000 particles on screen that blow and move with the wind. So it does seem like they're really pushing that. I wonder what could have inspired the wind blowing things, maybe pointing you in certain directions. I wonder what could have inspired that. Environments, I read that one. Massively improved. The wind effects looking way more realistic when blowing through trees in the grass. AC Shadows will be PS5 Pro enhanced, which it's the only upcoming game that was shown in the PS5 Pro showcase. It was the only game coming in the future. Everything else was already released. It was really, really strange that it's the only thing that was shown. But It will be PS5 Pro enhanced. It seems to run at 60 frames in the enhanced version. At least that's the footage that they showed, but it will likely also be able to do so on other consoles because they tend to develop these things to be pretty scalable. So it probably has a performance mode, and then they have a PS5 Pro performance mode, which is enhanced in various ways. So yeah, I would expect that that's probably the case. The new tech will be included in all other upcoming mainline Assassin's Creed games like Hexe. This is basically just a reflection of their new move. And this is where, like, we talked about this on the podcast, but Haven Studios, their whole thing, other than Fair Game $, which they're working on. Let me see if I can find this blog. Okay. So their whole thing is that they are really, really pushing cloud game development, which this stuff is horrifying. This like AI generated imagery from like a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, when it was really, really bad. It's really disturbing. But they basically describe all of this stuff, how they have a bunch of people that previously worked at Google and a bunch of other stuff. But basically they want to be able to develop games using cloud tools that like update for everybody all at the same time. And it seems like that's one of the main reasons that they wanted to buy out Haven, because they had that potential. They had that firepower. And this is similar to the Ubisoft Scalar or Scalar, whatever tech. And basically this is just a system where they wanted to be able to go in there and have the engine, quote unquote, if you imagine it like this, reinvented so that they would have different components of the engine that can be updated and swapped out independently, but they update for everybody within the company. So if you make an improvement to the weather simulation system, you can update that in the cloud engine, whatever, and that will go to all of the games that are being made for everybody else. It can also apply to bigger individual games where you can quickly make engine improvements that affect everything instead of having to do like a big relaunch or a 2.0 or whatever else. Interesting idea, interesting concept. I like it. But the most simple way of describing this is that the goal is to basically eliminate the problem that has plagued a lot of these big companies' games, where in like, you know, Ubisoft's a great example. They can have something like Star Wars Outlaws, which has certain technical things it can do that Anvil with Assassin's Creed can't do. But then you see with Assassin's Creed, they have stuff they're doing, like with enemy AI, that's way better than what they're doing over with Snowdrop. And their goal is to basically unify it so that everything can perform at the same cutting edge level consistently. So you don't end up with this, like, your game 6 months ago did this way better. Why is this game struggling so much? Like, what are we doing? You know, it's just, that's kind of the vision, at least. And as you can see here, I mean, this sounds like, you know, just standard corporate, like, get executives excited. The cloud is an incredible accelerator. It delivers opportunities to move faster and co-create better. You already see this in other industries, like how Figma and Google Docs fundamentally change how work is done. Games need to start moving that direction if we want to stay cutting edge. And then they also describe it with like AI implementations and stuff. And bear in mind, this is a blog post that was posted July 20th of 2022. This is like before the AI craze. And they were already talking about it. So I'm sure that's part of the reason that they're all excited. Yeah, that's the whole goal is to do this, but to all of the other companies within their purview as well. But going back to the AC Shadows thing, they're introducing more and more stuff. I'm still iffy on the writing, but everything else they are making active improvements to. This just graphically looks significantly better, or the trailer they released a couple days ago or at the end of last week, I think graphically looked a lot better than what we previously saw in like June, which some of these shots are from. But that's kind of standard. I think AC Shadows is going to be one of those games some people play and have a really good time with, but I fully expect the discourse around it is going to be so toxic that there probably is not going to be a lot of organic coverage of it, unfortunately. Because I'd like to just be able to talk about games. And if you don't want to play it for this or that political reason, so be it. But, you know, beyond that, not much you can do. We'll see. I'm guessing the marketing is going to pick up here in the next like week or two. That would be my guess, is that we're going to start to hear a lot more. I think they're going to like actually start marketing it. We're going to actually start seeing maybe more gameplay trailers, more extended look trailers, that type of thing, which I think they need. They just have to change the discourse. He took my thing. Red flag, red